Hey there, Rapidly Ripped listeners. Welcome back to another episode that's sure to pique your interest and keep you hooked from start to finish. Today, we're delving into the life of the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger. But this isn't just a rehash of the well-worn tales you've heard 1,000 times. No, we're digging deep to uncover the lesser-known facts, the shenanigans, and those rare tidbits that only hardcore fans crave. Stick around as we peel back the layers and give you an intimate look at the man behind the muscle. From his intense training sessions at Gold's Gym to his rise in Hollywood and beyond, this episode promises to deliver the rare insights and untold stories you won't find anywhere else. Ready to dive in? Chapter 1. From Austria to Awesome, The Humble Beginnings. Imagine this, a tiny village called Thal, Austria. Population? Not even enough for a decent block party. It's 1947, post-World War II, and life is about as exciting as watching paint dry on a cold day. Enter Arnold Alois Schwarzenegger, just a kid with big ears, big dreams, and a last name nobody in America would ever pronounce right. Arnold wasn't born into greatness. He was born into a house without indoor plumbing. Yeah, you heard me. The man who would later own mansions started life in a home where taking a hot shower meant collecting firewood first. If that's not motivation to hustle, I don't know what is. His dad was a strict cop, the kind who probably scared the crap out of the local kids just by walking down the street. His mom? She was sweet but practical, doing her best to keep Arnold and his brother, Meinhard, in line. Now here's the thing about Arnold. Even as a kid, he knew he was different. While other kids were dreaming about following in their parents' footsteps, Arnold was out there thinking, nah, I'm going to make my own footsteps, and they're going to echo. And then he found it, the spark, the aha moment, the thing that would define his life forever, a bodybuilding magazine. Yep, a single beat-up issue of Muscle and Fitness lit a fire in young Arnold like nothing else. He saw pictures of guys like Reg Park and Steve Reeves, massive dudes with muscles for days, and thought, I want that. I want to be that. Now, let's pause for a second. Imagine being a teenager in the middle of nowhere, telling everyone you're going to become the best bodybuilder in the world. Not just in Austria, not just in Europe, the world. That's like saying you're going to walk on Mars. People laughed at him, of course. But Arnold, he didn't care. He was too busy scheming, lifting, and daydreaming about being bigger, physically and metaphorically, than anyone could imagine. His first gym was basically a pile of rusty weights in a cold shed. He didn't have a fancy trainer or an Instagram influencer shouting, "Let's go!" in his ear. It was just Arnold, raw determination, and probably a lot of frozen fingers in the winter. But here's the thing. The dude worked. He didn't just kind of lift weights. He attacked them like they owed him money. And that's where the magic started. Arnold realized early on that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. He didn't have access to the best tools or resources, but he had grit. And if there's one thing this guy would later prove, it's that grit can take you anywhere. By the time he hit his late teens, Arnold was already a local legend. People would stop and stare because, let's be real, you don't see 6-foot-tall teenagers with cannonball shoulders walking around your village every day. But Arnold wasn't just lifting weights. He was building a dream, brick by brick, rep by rep. He entered his first bodybuilding competition at 18, didn't win. And you know what? He wasn't mad. He was pumped because now he knew the game. He had a taste of the spotlight and he wanted more. Fast forward a couple of years and Arnold had one goal: get to America, the land of opportunity, the home of Hollywood, the birthplace of cheeseburgers the size of your head. He'd heard about California gyms like Gold's where the pros trained and decided, that's where I belong. So what did he do? He started saying yes to every opportunity that would get him closer. Competitions, exhibitions, you name it. He didn't care how long it took or how hard it was. He was a freight train on a one-way track to success, and nothing, not doubters, not limited resources, not even his thick Austrian accent, was going to stop him. Arnold's early life is a lesson for all of us. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is where you're going and how hard you're willing to work to get there. He didn't let his circumstances define him. Instead, he defined his circumstances. And that's how a kid from a tiny village with no indoor plumbing started the journey to becoming a global icon. So, if you've ever felt like the odds are stacked against you, just remember, Arnold started with a pile of rusty weights in a cold shed. What's your excuse? Chapter 2. The Bodybuilding Beast. So, picture this. It's the 1960s, and Arnold is no longer just that ambitious kid from Austria. He's moved to Munich, where the gyms are bigger, the weights are heavier, and the competition still not ready for what's coming. By the age of 19, he'd won his first major title, Junior Mr. Europe. But Arnold wasn't celebrating with champagne just yet. No, he had bigger trophies in mind. He was obsessed. And I mean obsessed. The guy trained 6 hours a day, every day, like he was in a Rocky montage that never ended. Most people would have quit after the first week of soreness. But Arnold, he embraced it. He loved the pain, called it the pump. To him, that burn in your muscles wasn't just a side effect of hard work. It was the feeling of greatness being built. Now, let me paint the picture here. Arnold wasn't just lifting weights, he was lifting vibes. Wherever he went, he exuded this cocky but lovable confidence. It's like he already knew he was going to be the best and everyone else just hadn't gotten the memo yet. But there was a problem. Europe wasn't the big leagues. Sure, the competitions were decent, but if you wanted to be the guy, you had to head west, way west, to California. And Arnold, he had his sights locked on one thing, Mr. Olympia, the holy grail of bodybuilding. Now, here's where it gets fun. Arnold didn't just show up in America and start winning trophies. Nope. His first attempt at Mr. Olympia in 1969 was a total flop. He went up against Sergio Oliva, a.k.a. The Myth, a guy so ripped he looked like he'd been sculpted out of granite. Arnold lost, badly. And you know what he said about it? I didn't consider it failure, I considered it education, because that's Arnold for you. He didn't whine, he didn't sulk, he just went back to the gym and worked harder. He studied Sergio, figured out what made him great, and vowed to crush him next time. By 1970, Arnold was back, bigger, better, and more determined than ever. This time, he didn't just win Mr. Olympia, he dominated. At just 23 years old, he became the youngest Mr. Olympia in history, a record that still stands. From there, Arnold went on an absolute tear. He won Mr. Olympia 6 more times. And each time he didn't just show up to compete, he showed up to own the stage. He'd flash that signature smirk, hit a perfect pose, and make it clear, you're not beating me today, or ever. But let's talk about what really made Arnold special. It wasn't just his insane physique. Sure, the guy had muscles in places most people don't even have places, but what set him apart was his mind. Arnold wasn't just a bodybuilder, he was a strategist. He knew how to play to the crowd, psych out his competitors, and market himself as the guy everyone wanted to be, or at least look like. One of my favorite stories is from the movie Pumping Iron. Arnold talks about how he'd mess with his rivals backstage. He'd casually walk up to them before a competition and say things like, "You look a little flat today. Did you forget to carb load?" Boom. Instant doubt planted. That's next level mental warfare, folks. But here's the kicker. Arnold wasn't just a showman. He truly loved the sport. He loved the discipline, the camaraderie, and the chance to push himself to the absolute limit. To him, bodybuilding wasn't just about looking good. It was about proving that with enough work, you could reshape your body, your life, and even your destiny. By the mid-70s, Arnold had become more than a champion. He was a phenomenon. People who'd never set foot in a gym knew his name. He was on magazine covers, in documentaries, and in every conversation about fitness. And then, in 1975, at the peak of his career, he did the unthinkable. He retired. Why? Because Arnold wasn't just chasing trophies, he was chasing the next big thing. He'd proven everything he needed to in bodybuilding, and now it was time to take on a new challenge. But before we move on, let's recap Arnold's bodybuilding legacy. 7 Mr. Olympia titles, a global fitness revolution, the ability to intimidate anyone with a single bicep flex. And most importantly, Arnold taught us this: the body follows the mind. If you believe in yourself and work hard enough, there's no limit to what you can achieve. So, if you're still skipping leg day because it's too hard, just remember, Arnold was out there crushing leg day like his dreams depended on it, because they did. Chapter 3, Lights, Camera, Action Hero. After hanging up his posing trunks in 1975, Arnold wasn't planning on chilling out and collecting dust. Oh no, the guy was already scheming his next big move, taking over Hollywood. The dream was as bold as ever. He didn't just want to be in movies, he wanted to be a movie star, and not just any star, the kind of star whose name alone sells tickets. But let's be real for a second. Hollywood in the 70s wasn't exactly rolling out the red carpet for a muscle-bound Austrian guy with a thick accent and a last name longer than most screenplays. Casting directors basically took one look at Arnold and thought, cool body, but can he act? Spoiler alert, early on? Not really. Arnold's first big role was Hercules in New York, 1969. And when I say big, I mean a big old mess. They didn't trust his voice enough to let him keep it in the final cut, so they dubbed it over with some random dude who sounded more like a game show host than a demigod. The result? Pure comedy, just not the kind anyone intended. But here's the thing about Arnold. He doesn't quit. Where most people would have thrown in the towel and gone back to flexing in front of European audiences, Arnold doubled down. He took acting lessons, worked on his accent, and studied the craft like he'd studied bodybuilding. He knew that success wasn't just about talent, it was about persistence and positioning. His big break came in 1977 with Pumping Iron. Now, this wasn't your typical movie. It was a documentary about the world of competitive bodybuilding, but let's be honest, it was really an Arnold Schwarzenegger charm fest. The film showcased not just his physique, but his larger-than-life personality. Arnold wasn't just lifting weights, he was lifting expectations. He made bodybuilding look not just impressive, but downright cool, and Hollywood started to notice. Then, in 1982, came the moment that changed everything. Conan the Barbarian. Now, if you've never seen this movie, let me break it down for you. It's basically Arnold running around shirtless with a sword, fighting bad guys, and delivering lines like, "Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women." Absolute gold. Conan wasn't just a hit, it was a smash. Audiences couldn't get enough of Arnold, and suddenly the guy who'd been laughed out of casting rooms was Hollywood's hottest new action star. But here's where Arnold really started to shine. Most actors would have played it safe, sticking to what worked. But Arnold? He knew he wasn't just selling muscles, he was selling a brand. He leaned into what made him different. His unique look, his accent, and his ability to make even the cheesiest one-liners sound epic. And then came 1984, The Terminator. Let's take a moment for this one. Arnold wasn't even the first choice for the role. Originally, the studio wanted him to play Kyle Reese, the hero, but after meeting with director James Cameron, it became clear that Arnold was the Terminator. Think about it. A nearly unstoppable, emotionless killing machine. Yeah, that's basically Arnold's workout routine in movie form. The Terminator wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon. The line, "I'll be back," became iconic, and Arnold went from action star to superstar. From there, it was a greatest hits parade. Commando, 1985, where Arnold takes down an entire army by himself. Predator, 1987, because who else could face off against an alien hunter with dreadlocks and win? Total Recall, 1990, where Arnold proves he can do sci-fi and blow our minds at the same time. And let's not forget Kindergarten Cop, 1990, where he proved that even muscle-bound action heroes can nail comedy. What made Arnold special wasn't just his ability to blow stuff up on screen, it was his charisma. He had this rare gift of making you believe he was having the time of his life, whether he was battling robots or wrangling kindergartners. By the mid-90s, Arnold wasn't just a movie star, he was an institution. His name was synonymous with big-budget blockbusters, and he'd proven that you didn't need to fit Hollywood's mold to become its king. But, as always, Arnold wasn't content to stay in one lane. While most actors would have ridden the action wave into retirement, Arnold was already plotting his next big pivot. Because if there's one thing this guy's career teaches us, it's that the game doesn't stop until you say it does. So, next time you're thinking about backing down because the odds don't look great, just remember, Arnold went from that guy with the weird accent to the guy who made action movies cool. If he can conquer Hollywood, what's stopping you from conquering Leg Day? Chapter 4, The Governator Rises. All right, so here's the part where Arnold goes full plot twist on us. He's dominated bodybuilding, conquered Hollywood, and now he's about to step into politics. Because why not? When you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, the world is basically your personal sandbox. Let's rewind to the late 90s. Arnold's a megastar with more blockbuster hits than most actors could dream of. But here's the thing about Arnold. He's not just about flexing muscles or delivering iconic one-liners. The guy is always looking for a new challenge. And what's more challenging than stepping into the circus of American politics? Now, Arnold didn't just wake up one day and decide, hey, I'll be a governor. The seeds were planted way back in the 80s when he became a vocal advocate for fitness and education. President George H.W. Bush even appointed him as chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. Arnold took the gig seriously, traveling across the U.S. to promote healthy living like it was a Hollywood press tour. Fast forward to 2003. California is in chaos. The state is grappling with a massive budget crisis, a recall election is underway, and people are wondering, who can save us from this mess? Cue Arnold walking into the room like he just stepped off a movie set. The recall election was a free-for-all, with over 100 candidates running, including a porn star, a child actor, and, of course, Arnold. The media had a field day. Headlines like, "From Terminator to Governator," were everywhere. Critics called his campaign a publicity stunt, but Arnold, he was dead serious. And here's the kicker. Arnold didn't campaign like a typical politician. No boring speeches, no stiff suits. Instead, he brought the charisma and showmanship that made him a star. He'd roll up to rallies, crack jokes, and fire off lines like, "Don't worry, I can pump up California." The people loved it. Arnold was a breath of fresh air in a political landscape full of stale sound bites. He was relatable, energetic, and had this uncanny ability to make you believe he could actually turn things around. On October 7th, 2003, Arnold crushed the competition and became the 38th governor of California. Let that sink in for a moment. A former bodybuilder-turned-action hero was now running the most populous state in the country, only in America, right? But being governor wasn't all action-packed photo ops and triumphant speeches. Arnold faced plenty of challenges. Critics argued that his policies didn't always deliver, and he often found himself at odds with both Democrats and Republicans. But here's the thing, Arnold never backed down. When the budget crisis got ugly, Arnold famously brought a giant steel replica of the state's finances, a literal debt clock, to press conferences saying, "If we don't fix this, California's going to be terminated." Classic Arnold, turning even the bleakest situations into movie-worthy moments. And let's not forget the human side of his tenure. Arnold genuinely cared about the people he served. Whether it was visiting wildfire-stricken communities or pushing for after-school programs, he always showed up. By the time he left office in 2011, Arnold's approval ratings had taken a hit, but his legacy was undeniable. He'd proven that politics wasn't just for career politicians. It was for anyone willing to roll up their sleeves, take risks, and fight for what they believed in. And in true Arnold fashion, he didn't just disappear into the political sunset. Instead, he used his platform to keep advocating for the causes he cared about, from renewable energy to gerrymandering reform. Because for Arnold, the mission is never really over. So next time you think a challenge is too big, just remember, Arnold didn't let a heavy Austrian accent stop him from running California. If he can govern 39 million people, you can handle that overdue email. No excuses. Chapter 5, Beyond the Screen, Arnold's Next Act. All right, hold on tight, because we're about to dive into the next chapter of Arnold Schwarzenegger's story. After conquering bodybuilding, Hollywood, and California's political scene, you'd think the guy would kick back and relax, right? Wrong. Arnold doesn't do retirement. He does reinvention. By 2011, Arnold had officially wrapped up his time as governor of California. It would have been easy for him to fade into the background. After all, he'd already achieved everything that most people would consider the pinnacle of success. But remember, Arnold doesn't do anything halfway. He's all about pushing limits, breaking molds, and, let's be real, staying in the spotlight. So, what does an action hero do after he's saved the world a dozen times, reformed a state, and earned his spot in Hollywood history? He keeps making moves, of course. And Arnold, he wasn't about to slow down. The first thing he did was what any true movie star would. He made a comeback. But it wasn't just any comeback. This was The Expendables 2, 2012, where Arnold returned to the action-packed, grenade-throwing glory of his former days alongside Sylvester Stallone and Bruce Willis. It was like the Avengers of the 80s and 90s, and Arnold's appearance wasn't just a cameo, it was a statement. The Terminator was back. But Arnold didn't just stick to acting. In fact, his post-political career became a master class in reinvention. He dove headfirst into business ventures, becoming involved in everything from real estate to fitness apps. In 2015, he launched the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Pump Club, a fitness app that allowed fans to work out with the man himself, offering workout tips, training videos, and inspiration straight from the source. Let's pause here for a second. How many other action stars are taking the time to create something that helps people level up their own lives? That's the Arnold way. It's not just about being a star, it's about helping others achieve greatness too. Now, speaking of his fitness legacy, Arnold has remained passionate about it, even as he's gotten older. Sure, his biceps might not be as enormous as they were in the 70s, but Arnold is still one of the best-known advocates for health and fitness around the world. And then there's Arnold's fascination with social media. You would think a guy like Arnold, who was already a media titan, would just stay away from TikTok and Instagram. But no, he embraced it. Arnold's social media presence is a mix of motivational content, behind-the-scenes glimpses of his life, and, of course, the occasional classic Arnold one-liner. Seriously, you haven't lived until you've watched him drop a motivational quote with the same intensity he uses when he's smashing through walls in a movie. So, what's the takeaway from Arnold's next act? Simple. You don't have to stop after your prime. You don't have to just settle for what you've already done. Arnold's life is proof that you can keep growing, keep evolving, and keep reinventing yourself. He's the embodiment of what happens when you refuse to be boxed in by other people's expectations. You create your own path, and then you hustle, train, and fight your way down it, no matter how many people try to tell you to stay in your lane. Remember, Arnold didn't stop, ever. He kept growing, adapting, and taking on new challenges. So next time you think it's too late to start something new, whether it's a new career, a new habit, or even a new workout routine, just look at Arnold. He didn't wait for permission. He just went out there and did it, and so can you.